name is Drew, and I'm an amateur model. My interest in model building started when I was about 12, whenever I received a 1957 Chevy Corvette model from one of my cousins for Christmas. I really enjoyed assembling that car. I don't remember doing much painting on the car then, but my interest grew, and I started doing a lot of model cars at that time. A wide variety, from Volkswagen Bugs to one of my favorite ones was a 67 Ford Fairlane, and I also expanded my interest at that time into boats, planes, and maybe even a tank or two. I don't remember all of them that I made, but after a while I kind of gave up that hobby as I got a little bit older, and got into doing other things in high school. And several years ago I kind of got back into it, but then I had kids, and that put a lot of time constraints on my own interests and hobbies. But recently I've started back into the hobby. Now, as I said, I've worked mostly on model cars over the years, and they're nice little small projects to work on, even though I spend a number of hours on each model doing a lot of customization. But my dream has always been to build a model railroad layout. I remember about that same time, when I was 10, 12 years old, going to visit a friend of ours, and during that visit we went to go over to his grandfather's house, and his grandfather had a model train layout in his attic, and I thought it was just one of the most amazing things I'd ever seen, and a whole lot of fun. I got a model train at that time, and mostly I just set it up on the dining room table, watched it run loops around on the dining room table, and I had a lot of fun with that. But then when I was in high school, I had a mentor, an older adult, who was very much into the hobby of model railroading. He entered contests, he was involved in a local train modeling association, and he built some fantastic realistic scenery and dioramas, as well as a layout in his own house. And it really spurred a lot of creative interest in me of all the wide variety of things you can do in model railroading. So I was interested in building my own layout. But you go away to college and you have other interests at that time. And so I didn't really get a chance to pursue it much then. Several years later, after I'd gotten married, I started to build a model railroad layout in my basement. But then we started to have kids. And that took a lot of time away, as a lot of you understand. So the layout that I started, and it was just in its infancy. When we moved into a bigger house after our third child was born, I had to tear that down, and it didn't survive the move. So now, 13 years later, I'm on a journey to build my own railroad layout here in the basement. I've still got a number of things left over from that train layout. I have a few structures I've pre-built. I've just been sitting in a box for a number of years. A really pretty nice steam locomotive that I've recently weathered. I've got some track and a couple of different controllers and those sorts of things. And so I'll be using some of those supplies that I have left over, adding to it, and I'm planning to build a 6-foot by 8-foot layout here in the basement. I grew up in Springfield, Missouri. Springfield was the headquarters of the St. Louis and San Francisco Railroad, also called the Frisco Railroad. So, I grew up here in trains. We actually lived several times. Now, at that point, when I lived there, they had already been bought out. But I lived close to the train tracks for my life, and there was Frisco memorabilia all over Springfield. And it was just part of the culture of the town, of that being the headquarters for the railroad there. There was a big diesel shop. Not too far, just a few miles from where I lived at one point. I had friends from high school that after high school graduation learned the trade of diesel repair and worked in those rail yards. And oftentimes as I would go to bed at night, I would hear the train whistle from the train just 3-4 blocks from the house that I lived in. So I have a lot of nostalgia for the trains, and specifically the Frisco Railroad. The Frisco traveled all sorts of places within the Southeast. It served Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Alabama. I believe it even went into Georgia and Florida. I will be focusing my operations for the Frisco Railroad within the Ozarks. That's my home. That's where I grew up. It's the landscape I know the best, and it's closest to my heart. So as I work on this layout, I will be incorporating a lot of the features that you would find in the Ozarks. As I mentioned, I have a steam train, so that gives you some idea of the time frame that I'm looking at. I'm going to be circa 1930s, kind of Depression era is the time frame that I'm looking at in building this around. I already have some plans for how I want to do this layout, but I'm going to bring you along with me as I finalize those plans and I work through them. My goal as a model railroader isn't necessarily historical accuracy. It isn't necessarily even railroad operations accuracy or those sorts of things. It's more of an aesthetic to me and what I think looks good and what I think looks nice and fun and is interesting to me. And those are the time frame and the environment that train is going to be in is all pretty loosely held for me. If it's not fun, I'm not going to do it. If it's not interesting, I'm not going to do it. But I am going to try and incorporate some good practices around time frame, making sure the cars are somewhat accurate, making sure that the operations are somewhat accurate, as well as the industries that these freight trains, Frisco freight trains, serve, have some accuracy as well. Now, as I said, I'm very much an amateur novel builder. Some would say at this point I'm kind of a novice. So there are lots of great tutorials out on YouTube about how to really do a good job of building dioramas, how to weather cars, how to build cars, how to build scenery, how to do operations, and those are all resources that I use and I kind of just eat up. That's not what you're going to find with these videos. You hopefully will learn along the way, but you're learning with me as I learn more about how to build a model railroad. One of the things I really enjoy in life is creative problem solving. And I feel like model making, and particularly model railroading, creates a lot of opportunity for creative problem solving. So hopefully, in addition to some really specific skills around creating a railroad that you'll learn alongside with me, you'll get some insight into my creative problem solving process and how I tackle any problems or mistakes or errors that I make along the way. Because I found that even in the modeling that I've done, as well as all sorts of different areas in my life, that it isn't about doing something perfectly the first time. It's about incorporating the mistakes. It's about learning from the mistakes and how to correct things whenever you do make mistakes. And as I watch lots of how-to videos on YouTube and builders and those sorts of things, that's the process that for me is the most interesting. And I hope that a lot of you out there find that interesting as well, and that you can follow along with me as I learn more of those skills and learn more about how to solve for the problems that might come along the way. So as we get into this, I hope you follow along and you'll hit like and you'll subscribe to the channel, and that you will find this journey for me as fun and as interesting as I hope to find it myself. Thank you.